Hello, I am Eric from the book blog lonesomereader.com, and in this month, June, it is Independent Bookshop Week from June 18th to the 25th, which is a week just celebrating independent bookshops, and of which there are many in London. And so it's a great opportunity just to talk about your favorite bookshop and why you enjoy the experience of going to bookshops, as many of us do. I'm making this video because I'm answering the challenge from the fantastic Will over at the Vintage YouTube channel. He responded to a challenge from IBW to answer 10 questions all about what we're reading and what we love about bookshops, and it just sounded like a fantastic fun challenge. So here we go. There are 10 questions which I'll answer, and the first one is, what book or books are currently in your bag? So here is my bag, which I always carry around with me. And of course, you can never just have like one book in your bag. So I have a few books in my bag. And the first, which I'm really curious about reading, is Vinegar Girl by Anne Tyler. This is going to be published next week, and it's part of the Hogarth series, where they've commissioned a lot of very famous, well-regarded authors to give their own retelling, their remix of great Shakespeare classics. Now, the first in this series was published towards the end of last year, called The Gap of Time by Jeanette Winterson, and it was her retelling of A Winter's Tale, and it was an absolutely beautiful novel. I think it is one of her best novels in ages. I'm a longtime Winterson fan, and like some of her books I sort of went off from in the past 10 years, but The Gap of Time is a fantastic, inventive novel. And Anne Tyler is also one of my favorite authors. Her novel Ladder of Years is one of my absolute favorite books. And so this book is her retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. So it'll be really interesting and fun to see what she comes up with. And then the next book in my bag is this book of short stories. I always like to have a book of short stories around, so if I have a sort of a gap of time that I want to just have a short like snippet of a story, I'll dip into this. And Lucy Caldwell is a really interesting writer. She writes a lot about like ordinary life in a very insightful way, and I was really excited to read this new book of short stories after I'd first discovered her writing in this fantastic anthology called The Long Gaze Back, which was published last year. So this really great ongoing book that I'm reading. And then I also have a book of poetry. Now, I don't often read poetry, but this is called Spacecraft by John McCullough, and he's a really interesting, fun poet who writes a lot about nature and relationships and gender in a really exciting and interesting way, and so I find his poetry really engaging and fun. So those are the 3 books that I currently have in my backpack. Now, number 2 is, what's the last great book you read? And this is kind of difficult because I feel like I read a lot of great books, a lot of books that I really respond to, but I'd have to say the last really great book I read was a few weeks ago, and it's called The Gustav Sonata by Rose Tremaine. Rose Tremaine is a very well-regarded novelist. She's written many novels on lots of different subjects, and this novel sort of has an odd structure where it takes place in Switzerland, and it begins with a boy's life in post-World War II. He lives alone with his mother, and they have a sort of hard existence where she works in this difficult job in a cheese factory, and the father is missing, and you eventually find out what happened to the father. It goes back to World War II and the difficult decisions that he had to make, and then it leaps again into the future, past where the novel started, and to show how Gustav's life played out. And it's just such a moving and really excitingly structured and beautifully written novel. So I think it is great, and I'd really recommend it. Now, question 3 is, what book have you gifted the most? I probably have to go with this book from last year called Mrs. Engels by Gavin McRae. It's a debut novel, and this is a book that was one of my favorite of last year. I just responded to it so instantly that I got really excited about it, and I started buying it and sending it to lots of people, lots of book bloggers I know and lots of friends, and I just wanted everybody to read it, everybody to experience it. I felt so strongly about it that I just wanted to deliver it into people's hands and say, give this a try, because it's difficult with debut authors to know really who is who's really great, and this novel, all about a really engaging, funny, difficult woman named Lizzie Burns, and her relationship with the philosopher Friedrich Engels. So that is a fantastic book. And question 4, what's your favorite independent bookshop? Now, like I said, there are lots of great independent bookshops in London, so it's difficult to pick this. But I'd probably have to go with Gaze the Word Bookshop, which is such a... It's I wouldn't call it a bookshop so much as just like a community experience, because it really draws the LGBT community together. They run a lot of different discussion groups there, and they have lots of different readings, and they are always talking about community events that are going on. So it really draws people together, as well as having a great selection of books. And it's run by 2 really passionate people, co-workers, named Jim and Uli, and they're always willing to engage, to talk about books, to recommend books, and have a really good idea of what's going on. So this is a bookshop that when I've had things published in the past before, I've read at that bookshop a few different times. The crowd is always really engaging and interesting and fun to talk to, and they enjoy a good drink. So that's always fun too. So, question number 5 is, what's been your favorite book recommendation by a bookseller or fellow booktuber? So I'd probably have to go with talking about Gaze the Word Bookshop, of a book that Uli, who works there, recommended to me. I remember in the summer of last year, he had got a copy of Andrew Macmillan's book of poetry called Physical, and was so enthusiastic and passionate and articulate talking about it, about what a fantastic examination of the body, the way we relate to our body, and just how strong and meaningful this poetry was. And he just absolutely sold me, and so I had to get a copy and read it, and that ended up becoming one of my favorite books that I read last year as well. So that was a great recommendation, and he really knows how to sell a book. So question number 6 is, what's your favorite bookshop memory? I think This is gonna sound a bit mean, and it's actually not from an independent bookshop. It's from the former Borders bookshop, which used to exist on Oxford Street, which was a massive chain, but it's no longer there, so we don't even need to worry about it or discuss it anymore. But it was a massive bookshop over multiple floors, and my memory from this bookshop, which is a bit mean, I was sort of standing at some shelves, and I saw off in the distance there was an escalator where a bookseller, somebody who worked there, had this what do you call them, like a hand trolley or a sack truck, this hand trolley which was stacked really high with books, and he was trying to take it on the escalator, and I saw this in the distance, and he pulled it on the escalator, sort of holding it very precariously, and he started to go up the escalator, and then this man got on the escalator behind him, and as he was holding the hand trolley and the books, he sort of lost his balance, and the book started shaking, and I was watching this all, and it sort of felt like it was taking place almost in slow motion or something, like some weird slapstick comedy or something, and suddenly the book started to tumble and fall down, and the man who was beneath him going up this escalator, he started running down because suddenly this avalanche of books started falling after him, and so it does feel a bit like cruel that I find this a bit funny, but just the scene was so comical and strange, where this man was running down the up escalator and the books were tumbling after him, and somebody quickly stopped the escalator, and then a few people that were around the bottom of the escalator started helping pick up the books, and then I came over to help pick up the books as well. So it just was a strong, interesting experience to have at a bookshop that I found a bit cruelly funny, mainly because I felt like I've worked in a bookshop before and I've been quite clumsy, and I felt like that person could really easily have been me. I could really see that happening to me. So, question number 7. What do bookshops mean to you? What do you love about them? This is difficult to answer. One of the big things I love about bookshops is that they are places of escape. You feel like if you go into a bookshop, even though you might be in a city or in a very public place, you have this intense, intimate experience with this huge range of books which all look really tempting and which are just so much fun to browse through. Bookshops are great places of discovery. You can just come across books that like a bookseller is recommended, or a top 10. Usually I don't have much idea of like what are the best-selling books of the time, so it's just sort of interesting to see what books are really selling, and then just randomly going through shelves and coming across a book and saying, oh, that looks interesting, and grabbing it. And finally, bookshops mean to me damage to my wallet quite often, because I find it really difficult to go into one and not come out with at least a book or two, because I get so tempted and excited to read what I'm coming across. So that's what they mean to me. Question number 8. What are the books that made you? What books have most affected and influenced you? This is another really massive question, and I could spend a lot of time answering it, though I'm going to quickly go through a few books that have really meant a lot to me. There's this one book which I read when I was young, called Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days, by Stephen Maynes, and it's a young adult novel that I found really interesting, because it's sort of it's about a self-conscious boy who just wants to be a perfect person. He wants to fit in with other people. He feels like an outcast, and he comes across this book by a doctor called Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days. And so he takes it as kind of a self-help book of how to become a perfect person, and he has to go through all these torturous steps. And then the conclusion really is that perfect people are really dull, and they just sit in a room quietly all day sipping weak tea, and it's supposed to be meant to embrace your zaniness and just have fun, but actually it had the reverse effect on me, and I sort of thought like wow, yeah, that sounds like an ideal existence to me, just sitting quietly in a room sipping weak tea, and reading and thinking, and I wish I could spend all my time like that. But anyway, the next book that really made me was this novel called Mysteries of Winterthurn by Joyce Carol Oates, and Joyce Carol Oates is my absolute favorite author. I love her writing so much, and this was the first book that I read by her in 1999, which really struck me. It's a detective story, but a sort of like postmodern version, which makes it sound very, very intellectual and hoity-toity, but it's really a fantastic story with a really strong, engaging, interesting narrator detective, and a few different cases he has to solve, which are really bloody, gripping, thrilling cases. But also she gets really into the psychology of it, the philosophy of it, it becomes this weird quest of sort of philosophy, discovery of the meaning of existence, and it's such a strong novel, not really one of her best known, but is a really amazing read that set me off on this journey of reading more Joyce Carol Oates books and falling absolutely in love with her. And then finally, the book that really made me is The Waves by Virginia Woolf, a classic, a strangely written novel. It's written in this strange poetic language. It really takes a while to get into. You have to spend a lot of time getting a feel for the worlds that she creates. She really creates a completely alternate world, and it follows 6 characters throughout their entire lives, while sort of narrating this weird subterranean level of consciousness that they inhabit. And it's about friendship, it's about our development in life, and how we change, how different friendship grows and others fall off, and it's about so much, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful novel that I've read countless times. This is a very special edition. It contains 2 holograph versions of the novel, and so you can see that it is it's actually drafts that Virginia Woolf wrote, and you can see the corrections she made. So this I wouldn't recommend just reading this version first, but obviously if you're a hardcore fan, this is amazing because you can see actually the development of the novel, the way she crafted it, the way she changed it, and it's so this is one of my very special books that I keep and hold very close to my heart. So, question number 9. What book do you recommend readers gift for Father's Day? Because Father's Day is coming up soon, and it takes place during Independent Bookshop Week. Now, this is a difficult question because you feel like you really want to go with like a masculine book, something that says something about men. I'm going to pick a book by Joyce Carol Oates called What I Lived For, because this is narrated from the perspective of a very macho man. And it's all about his life and a very complicated day he has. And she gets so perfectly inside the consciousness of this man. And it's a great read. So I think a lot of fathers would really respond to it. A lot of men who might not read all that many books by women would find it a really great, strong read. So, so I'd really recommend this. And if not that, then I also read this book really recently. This is a proof copy, so it's a very plain version, but The Lonely Sea in the Sky by Dermot Bolger, an Irish writer. And it's a fantastic seafaring adventure based on a real-life story, tale about during World War II of a cargo ship, Irish cargo ship, traveling to Portugal, and the crew of this ship come across a group of German sailors in the water drowning, and they have to make the decision of whether to save them or not, because it's a historical incident. They do save them, and you find that out at the very beginning. But even though this seems like it shouldn't be a complicated question, it is, because it's during wartime. Ireland was a neutral country, and so the implications of taking these German soldiers aboard and bringing them to Ireland made it very difficult for them, because it sort of ostracized them both from the German forces for not returning their soldiers, and from the British soldiers from British Army from not turning these German soldiers over as prisoners, because a lot of them were very badly wounded and they wanted to get them medical attention as soon as possible, and the nearest port was in Ireland. So, and it's a sort of like coming-of-age story, because it's told from the perspective of a cabin boy who's 14 years old, and it's his first voyage, and so he has to learn to grow very quickly. And I think, yeah, fathers would really love this book. So, and it's a recent book by New Island Publications, so it's a great new book that I'd really recommend. And finally, question 10, what book is currently at the top of your to-be-read pile? This book I'm really looking forward to, called A Quiet Life by Natasha Walter, published by Borough Press, and it is, Natasha Walter is a great feminist. She's written books on feminism, and she's a great humanitarian, and this is her first novel, and I'm really intrigued and interested to see what it'll be like, so I'm really looking forward to reading this next. So, those are my 10 questions. I'm going to stop now because I've been going on too long, and but I hope some of you will take up this challenge too. I'd really like to see some of your video responses to this as well, or just in the comments. You can respond to all 10 of these questions. I'll list all 10 of the questions, and you can let me know what your responses are too. I'd love to find out about new great independent bookshops and your thoughts about them, and what you've been reading recently. So that's me for now, and thanks very much. You can get in touch with me through lonesomereader.com, or on Twitter. I'm just at lonesomereader. So thanks for watching, and if you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel down below, and yeah, and leave me your comments, because I'd really like to know what you think and what you've been reading and what are some of your favorite bookshops.